Kevin Augustin arrived at Leeds in January with the aim to improve the side's poor chance conversion rate compared to the rest of the top six, and to provide competition to Patrick Bamford. The aim of this video is to analyse the differing styles of both strikers and who should lead the line for Marcelo Bielsa when football does return. Before joining Leeds, Augustin was the subject of Premier League interest. Even as recently as January, that was very much the case. Having managed a better goal per minute ratio than superstar teammate Timo Werner during his time at Leipzig. Clearly, it hasn't gone to plan so far for Augustin. He's played just 49 minutes of football for Leeds and didn't play many minutes of football for Monaco earlier on in the season whilst out on loan. However, it would be far too early to write off Augustin. The suspension of football could perhaps provide Augustin time to recover from his injury and to build up his fitness levels to the level Marcelo Bielsa requires from his starting centre-forward in his system. Looking in more detail, both strikers have managed similar goals per 90 over the last 3 seasons. Now, of course, it is worth factoring into this that Kevin Augustin has played the last 3 seasons in the top divisions of Germany and France, whereas Patrick Bamford has spent his entire time in the second division of England, as we all know. But what is very similar as well as this, in terms of the goals per 90, is the high proportion of shots inside the penalty area from both strikers. Now, what this suggests is that both are heavily reliant on good serves into the box and poacher type forwards, who try and stay in the penalty area as much as they can to get goals. Yeah, they're not the types of strikers who will take shots from distance or drop off and try and take shots from distance, etc., like Alexander Mitrovic or even Tyler Roberts, for example. Mitrovic attempting 25% of his shots this season from outside the box, whereas Tyler Roberts has attempted almost a third of his shots this season outside the box. They're not the types of strikers who will drop off and try and score different types of goals, both heavily reliant on good service into the box. So a good comparison to make between the two with this is the conversion rate of the two from shots inside the penalty area. And clearly in this stat, Kevin Augustin wins, converting 27.3% of the shots he took from inside the box last season. For context on this stat, Sergio Aguero, arguably the best striker in England, managed a shot conversion from inside the penalty area of 22.5% this season. So clearly Augustin is very strong at finishing chances from inside the box if you give him good service, and that's a big factor as well. In the Marcelo Bielsa team, it's inevitable Kevin Augustin will get a better quality of service than he has done in his previous teams. So clearly there's a lot of similarities here, but from this stat alone you can clearly see that Augustin is the better finisher of the two. Over the last 3 seasons he's took less shots than Bamford and scored a similar rate of goals in a tougher division. So it's fair to say within this stat Augustin is the better option here, but both have a very similar method of attacking the box. They're not the types of strikers to drop off. They like to attack the penalty area and get goals from those situations, with Bamford scoring all his goals this season from inside the penalty area. So looking at the goals per 90 stats in more detail, let's start with Patrick Bamford. Patrick Bamford, the current first choice striker. So his goals per 90 has kind of been down, up, but it's been fairly consistent. It's been very much around the 0.5 sort of, a goal every 180 minutes at the minute. But it has been very much up and down. But looking at the 18-19 season, what is worth noting is that his best goals per 90 ratio has come from the season where he's played the fewest minutes and started on the bench mostly. Last season he was behind Kemar Roofe in the pecking order for much of the season. So it's worth noting that his best goals per 90 of 0.6 during 18-19 came when he played the fewest amount of minutes. Now why this is interesting is that a lot of pieces of analysis have been made that Patrick Bamford has to start games because he can't affect games off the bench. But clearly, maybe that isn't quite the case. You only have to go back to the start of this season, on New Year's Day specifically, against West Brom, when Eddie Nketiah started the game, arguably Leeds' biggest game of the season, was ineffective, and Bamford came on at half-time and turned the game round for Leeds. So clearly, perhaps there is something there to say that Patrick Bamford doesn't have to start games to affect games. He can affect games off the bench, even though he's more known for the other elements of his game rather than goal scoring. He can still affect games from the bench. Augustin, well, his goals per 90 has been massively affected by this season. Of course, he hasn't scored a goal yet this season, so it's going to massively affect his stats. But if we look at 18-19 and 17-18, he's managing 0.6 goals per 90, which, as I've said earlier in the review, that Timo Werner couldn't even match that, one of the best strikers in Europe. So It's fair to say that Augustin is clearly the goal scorer of the two, and as I've said before, in the Marcelo Bielsa team, when there's a high chance creation, perhaps Augustin suits it better to take the chances in the tight games. So whilst both strikers try to get goals in a very similar sort of way, and Augustin does seem the better poacher type forward of the two, how about we look more in their build-up play and their attacking method? Yeah, they're both similar, but they both build up play very, very differently. So Patrick Bamford, first of all, we only have to look at his passes per 90 to say Bamford is more of the striker who will drop deep and try and feed the wingers when he gets the ball. Compared to Augustin, he attempts almost 20% more passes per 90 than Augustin. Bamford also keeps hold of the ball better than Augustin, which is very, very key in a Bielsa team, to be fair. In every single of the last 3 seasons, he's lost the ball less times in terms of possession per 90 than Augustin. So clearly, Marcelo Bielsa likes control, and Bamford, in this instance, loses the ball less. And when you lose the ball, you lose control of the game. So perhaps it's clear to see Bamford's better at keeping hold of the ball, and it might suit a Bielsa team better. Now, in terms of aerials won, this is another one that Bamford clearly wins, and wins pretty heavily over the last 2 seasons, winning almost 3 times as many aerials, in fact over 3 times as many aerials as Augustin has in the last 2 seasons. So in terms of being a target man, a big physical centre forward who can hold up the ball, keep hold of the ball and link up play passes into those wingers and hold up play, Bamford is the better option of the two. However, that's not to say Augustin is not effective in the build-up play. He just simply builds up play in a different sort of way. Look at the successful dribbles per 90. Clearly Augustin is the better option here. Now what's key here is that whilst Bielsa may prefer a striker who can hold up play, keep hold of the ball and link up play, Augustin does offer a different sort of threat to what Leeds' other centre-forward options have offered this season. He can dribble with the ball. Now this is key against teams who defend in a low block. Now in the recent weeks, before the suspension, we didn't really be tested in this area too much. We scored a lot of our goals before half time, which meant that teams weren't able to defend in low blocks in the second half, and we were very much able to score goals early and force teams to attack us and open up spaces. But against other teams, say for example Wigan at home, Nottingham Forest away, perhaps Augustin has a different kind of threat here. He can take down low blocks purely through dribbling with the ball, something Leeds haven't had much this season. Probably the one weakness of Leeds' game is not having someone who can dribble with the ball freely, and this is where Augustin comes in. He can break down low blocks through this attacking method. Now in terms of key passes per 90, again it's quite even between the two strikers. Of course Augustin's stats are massively affected from this season, but over the previous 2 seasons you can see there's not much difference between the two strikers, and with Augustin taking fewer touches, perhaps he's more efficient with the ball as well in terms of linking up play. Whilst Bamford is clearly the stronger in the air, keeps hold of the ball better and perhaps holds the ball up better, Augustin could create a different creative angle. So to conclude, it looks clear that Bamford is not going to lose his starting centre-forward spot anytime soon. However, Augustin has clearly got different elements to his game that could help Marcelo Bielsa, and perhaps if Bamford has another poor run of form, could perhaps see Augustin start games. He does have the capability to do this. He can dribble the ball and he can play key passes, which is what Bielsa needs from a striker. He needs him to be a goal threat and creative, and Augustin offers this. Of course, he can't hold up play the way Bamford can, but he does offer a different sort of threat, and is a lot more clinical in terms of finishing. But Bamford, it would be wrong to say anything other than he's been a very useful front forward for Leeds this season. You know, of course, he's missed chances, but in terms of link-up play, he's a critical player in this Leeds team. He's almost a 5th man in the midfield. However, there is clearly different strengths between the two strikers, and perhaps both strikers suit different types of games. Bamford probably suits a more open game where he can link up play, can control the game with the midfield. Augustin probably suits better tighter games where teams defend in low blocks, 2 banks of 4, and he can use his dribbling skills to break down these teams, and his better quality of finishing, as in these types of games there's probably going to be a fewer quality of chances, or less chances overall. So Augustin is the more efficient striker, Bamford is probably the more suited to Bielsa's system, but both could be big options for Leeds as the season progresses. Let us know in the comments down below who you believe out of the two strikers should be starting as centre forwards for Leeds when football hopefully does return.